Hi, folks. Thank you so much for joining for this video as well. Thank you so much for giving, first of all, a lot of love to my last video where we discussed the difference between KTM and Himalayan. Which one is the better one? I think that a lot of people watched that one and got to learn a lot more. So, basis my research work that I've done over a period of 1.5 month, given the fact that there were a lot of people they were saying that Himalayan is not a very good bike. I was contemplating, unfortunately, there were a lot of people who actually mentioned they were pro Himalayan, and I actually spoke with them. And there were a lot of people who were actually the owners of KTM, and then they also were owner of Himalayan. They actually recommended Himalayan to me. So it was not 50-50, it was actually 80-20. So KTM came into play only when people said that if you want to go for off-roading and not touring, the seats are not comfortable, etc. So that was for the last video, but this video I brought considering the fact that a lot of people who are skeptical about Himalayan. So I have done some in-depth research for Himalayan. So if you see here in the backdrop, these are the links which I have put together, right? These are for the Himalayan research work, a lot of website addresses, a lot of YouTube videos, which a lot of people have spent time making to give us insight on Himalayan. It's there are people who have had Himalayan for over a year. There are people who've ridden it for more than 20,000 kilometers. There are people who are actually reviewing these bikes from Zig Wheels and other power drifts, etc. So, a crux I have brought for you today that will give you an in-depth insight on Himalayan as a motorcycle. So, let's listen to this podcast and understand Himalayan, if Himalayan is a good bike or it's not a good bike. And I'm sure that it'll really, really clarify a lot of doubts, lot of thoughts. It's a 19 minutes video. I'm going to play it now. If in case we have some questions, we'll pose those questions if in case required. That if that comes to my mind, but otherwise we'll continue to keep listening and make this video. I'm hoping that you guys are liking these kind of informative videos because what happens is आप लोग बहुत सारी websites पे जाते हो, and then when you go to these websites you search do a lot of stuff. So what I'm doing for you is I'm bringing you a crux of a lot of websites, a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of content that I'm getting from various places. I put them in one place and actually create this podcast for you so that you all can listen to it and actually get an insight on the topic of choice. So let's listen to this one, guys, regarding the Royal Enfield Himalayan 450, what kind of bike it is. So I'm going to start it now, and I think I'm going to get into interactive mode. Yeah, that'll be better. So let's play it out.
All right, welcome back everyone for another deep dive. This time we're taking a look at the new Royal Enfield Himalayan 450. It seems like this one's been generating some serious buzz online. We've got a whole pile of YouTube reviews to dig into, some long-term ownership reports, and even a really in-depth article from like a hardcore adventure bike website.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting mix of perspectives, right? You've got your seasoned motorcycle journalists, everyday riders just sharing their real world experiences, and even a pro motocross racer chiming in with his thoughts.
Exactly. So we're really aiming to give you, the listener, the full picture here. Is this bike really as good as everyone's saying? What are its strengths and weaknesses? And most importantly, is it the right adventure bike for you?
Okay, well, I think the best place to start is with the elephant in the room, so to speak, or maybe the donkey in the stable, this new engine.
Right, the Sherpa 450. I've seen that name thrown around a lot.
Yeah, and it's a big deal because it's Royal Enfield's first liquid cooled engine. Their older bikes are known for that classic thump thump sound, right? But this is a whole different animal.
And reviewers seem to be pretty excited about the performance boost, too. We're talking close to 40 horsepower. That's almost double the output of the older Himalayan. So what does that actually mean for the riding experience?
Well, the reviews I've seen all mention smoother power delivery and way less vibration compared to those older air-cooled engines. Imagine cruising down the highway and you want to overtake a slower vehicle. With this engine, you can do it effortlessly without all that jarring vibration.
Okay, yeah, I can definitely see the appeal in that. One YouTuber even mentioned that the intake sound was surprisingly fun when you rev it out. But I'm curious, did any of the reviewers mention any downsides to this new engine?
Yeah, actually, a few reviewers, especially those who were used to the older Himalayan, did say that this new engine lacks that low end torque, that grunt you feel at lower speeds. It basically means you might find yourself shifting gears more often, especially in city traffic or when you're tackling steep hills off road.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely something to consider, depending on where you're planning on riding. And speaking of new features, another big change with this Himalayan is the addition of ride-by-wire and riding modes. Could you break those down for our listener?
Yeah, of course. So, ride by wire basically means that the traditional throttle cable is replaced with an electronic system. What this does is it allows for much smoother throttle response, and it also paves the way for things like traction control, which could be, a huge safety feature, especially in slippery off-road conditions.
It seems like Royal Enfield is really pushing to modernize with this bike, even including those different riding modes like eco and performance.
Exactly. So you can think of eco mode as a way to get the best fuel efficiency for those long distance rides, and then performance mode is there when you really want to unleash, the full potential of the engine.
So this bike has got some serious punch with the new engine, but how does all that power translate to the handling? Did the reviewers have anything to say about that?
Well, along with the new engine, they completely redesigned the chassis. The Himalayan 450 has a steel twin spar frame and a relocated airbox, which is now tucked under the fuel tank.
Ah, okay. And what was the general consensus on the handling?
It seems like reviewers were pretty impressed with the improvement in handling. They really praised its cornering ability and how stable it feels, even at higher speeds. I think that comes down to a few things. The new frame design provides better rigidity, and then repositioning the airbox basically centralizes the bike's mass so it feels more balanced and planted.
Makes sense. One reviewer even said it hides the fact that it has a 21-inch front wheel. That's pretty impressive. You mentioned earlier that they relocated the airbox. Did any of the reviewers bring up any downsides to that change?
A couple of reviewers did mention that while the longer wheelbase is great for stability, especially at high speeds and off road, it can make the bike feel a bit less nimble in tight spaces. You might find yourself having to, wrestle it around a bit more in those situations.
All right, so we've got a powerful new engine, a responsive chassis, but let's get to the heart of it. How does this thing actually perform off-road?
Now that's where it gets really fun. The off road reviews we have are full of stories about riders pushing this bike to its limits on all sorts of terrain. And one of the things that really stands out is the upgraded suspension. We're talking 200 millimeters of travel, both front and rear, and it's all provided by Showa, which is a really well respected suspension manufacturer.
Wow, 200 millimeters. That's a lot of travel. So what were the reviewers saying about how the suspension felt?
Well, they all highlighted that the ride is a lot smoother and more controlled compared to the older Himalayan. They felt way more confident tackling rough terrain and were impressed with how well the suspension soaked up bumps and dips.
Yeah, one reviewer even shared a story about completely bottoming out the rear suspension on a particularly rough trail, and they were surprised by how smoothly the bike recovered. It really highlights its durability, I think, and its ability to handle, those unexpected impacts.
And that's exactly what you want in an adventure bike, something that can take a beating and keep on going. But it's important to remember that this bike isn't exactly a lightweight dirt bike, right? It weighs almost 200 kilograms.
Right, and that's where that Motocross Pro's review comes in. He mentioned that while the 450 is capable for experienced off-road riders, it might be a bit much for beginners because of the weight and the power delivery.
Exactly. He recommended that new riders might want to start with something a bit lighter and less powerful before hopping on the 450.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've talked about the engine, the handling, the off-road performance. Let's
Oh, hey there, what's up?
So my question is that if you're talking about that the new riders cannot go off-roading, I feel that they can do that, but it all purely depends. If in case they are actually buying this bike for only and only traveling, then in that case off-roading doesn't come into play. It only comes into play if you are an aggressive off-roader, and if you are an aggressive off-roader, then you will buy a bike which is an off-roading bike and not Himalayan only. That for that there are enduro bikes which are available.
That's a really insightful point. It's all about matching the bike to the rider's intended use.
Exactly. The motocross rider was talking about aggressive off-roading.
Yeah, like tackling technical trails and jumps. But if you're just planning on using the Himalayan for, mostly on-road touring with the occasional gravel road, then yeah, beginner could totally handle it. It really depends on your definition of off-roading.
And as you mentioned, if you are serious about aggressive off-roading, there may be other bikes that would be a better fit.
Okay, so that makes sense. Now, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about something that's probably top of mind for our listeners who are thinking about long-distance touring. What's the fuel efficiency like?
Yeah, most reviewers said they were getting around 30 to 34 kilometers per liter, which is pretty good, especially for a 450cc engine.
With its 17-liter fuel tank, you could potentially cover over 500 kilometers on a single tank, which is very useful for those long stretches between gas stations.
What's fascinating here is that that kind of range really opens up possibilities for adventure touring.
Okay, so this bike is fuel efficient depending on how you're using it, but let's be honest, no bike is perfect. What kind of quirks or annoyances did the long-term reviewers find?
One thing that came up a few times was the tripper navigation system. While it's convenient to have turn-by-turn directions, it relies on mirroring your phone's screen.
And this can drain your phone battery pretty quickly, which can be a pain, especially if you're relying on your phone for, other things like taking pictures or staying connected.
It raises an oh, yeah, uh-huh.
Do you know that I was talking to one of the guys in Himalayan, and they actually at Royal Enfield, and they mentioned that their new instrument cluster that they've actually come up with gives much more flexibility of keeping the phone switched off, so you don't really drain your battery to that extent. So that's an update I'm sharing with you right now.
Oh, that's fantastic information. It sounds like Royal Enfield is already addressing some of those early concerns about battery drain with the navigation.
What's
Yes.
fascinating here is how quickly manufacturers can iterate and improve based on user feedback. That's a really valuable update for potential buyers.
Yeah, that definitely changes the equation a bit when we talk about the practicality of that integrated Google Maps feature. It makes it much more appealing if you don't have to worry about your phone dying on a long ride.
Exactly. It sounds like they're moving towards a more seamless and battery-friendly navigation experience. Thanks for sharing that insider knowledge with us.
You got it. So with that update in mind, were there any other little quirks or annoyances that popped up in those long-term reviews?
Well, a few reviewers mentioned that the high beam switch is kind of awkwardly positioned. You have to adjust your grip and the handlebar to reach it.
Yeah, I can definitely see how that would get old after a while, especially if you're riding at night a lot and need to switch between high and low beams frequently.
One thing that popped up in a few reviews was that the conset, that's the headset bearings, can loosen over time, especially if you ride on rough terrain a lot.
And that can lead to a kind of wobbly feeling in the handlebars, which can be, a little unnerving at higher speeds.
What's fascinating here is that a seemingly small component can have a big impact on handling and stability.
Definitely something to keep an eye on. Maybe factor that into the maintenance budget. Oh, and I almost forgot. One reviewer mentioned that the engine cases have these little recesses that tend to trap water. And if you don't dry them properly, they can leave hard water stains.
Ah, yeah, those little details, right? But overall, it seems like these are pretty minor issues compared to some of the more serious problems that some bikes have.
Okay, good to know. Now, let's talk about something that's often a concern for motorcycle buyers, build quality and reliability. Royal Enfield hasn't always had the best reputation in this area.
That's true. But it seems like they've made some big improvements with this Himalayan 450. Most of the reviewers, even those who put a lot of miles on the bike, said it felt well built, solid, refined.
That's reassuring, especially for a bike that's designed to be ridden off-road. I mean, it's going to take a beating.
Oh, go for it.
You know what? I've recently bought this bike, and in fact, I've ordered this bike, and the reason is because I rode couple of bikes, and I realized that when I rode those bikes, they were looking so plasticky. I'm not naming the company right now because you all know what I'm talking about. They were looking very plasticky, and the premium quality and the that plush, that one looks for in a bike, that was missing. And when I rode Himalayan as a test ride, in fact, took it for a spin for some hours, and I realized that it started building on me. The body is all metal, and it kind of really gives that commitment that yes, I'm going to be there with you when you need me the most. And if I fall, I'm not going to crash into pieces like plastic materials. So that was there. So that I think really, really made a lot of difference for me to take a decision to actually purchase this bike.
That's a fantastic insight into why you chose the Himalayan 450. It really speaks to that feeling of solidity and dependability that a metal construction can provide.
Absolutely. That tactile sense of quality and robustness can definitely be a huge factor in making a connection with a motorcycle. It's that feeling that it's built to last.
It's interesting how that feeling of a solid, non-plastic build instilled confidence in you, that it would hold up when you need it most. That's a great point.
Yeah, it's more than just aesthetics. It's about the perceived durability and resilience. It sounds like that really resonated with you during your test ride.
And it highlights how different materials can evoke such different feelings about a bike's character and its ability to handle the rigors of riding. Thanks for sharing that.
You got it. And it's interesting you mentioned build quality because that's something the reviewers touched on as well.
Right. While acknowledging Royal Enfield's past reputation, many felt this new Himalayan represents a significant step forward in terms of how well it's put together.
Yeah, that's true. It'll be interesting to see how this bike holds up over time as you experience it firsthand and how Royal Enfield handles any potential issues that arise.
Speaking of handling potential issues, they are offering a 3-year warranty, which should give some peace of mind to you and other potential buyers.
For sure. I mean, it shows they're standing behind their product and are confident in its quality, which echoes your feelings about its solid construction.
All right, so taking everything.
Oh, yeah, let's hear it.
In fact, by paying a little more, you can extend it for 5 years. So it's not only 3 years; you can actually extend it to 5 years. It costs around 7,000 or something plus the RSA.
Oh, wow, that's great to know. That extended warranty option really sweetens the deal, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It addresses that concern about long-term reliability, and that extended RSA is also a great benefit.
Right. You've got this powerful new engine. It has a more comfortable riding position than older models.
Plus, it has capable off-road performance thanks to that upgraded suspension and solid build quality.
And it really seems like a versatile motorcycle. It is capable of handling various riding conditions.
Exactly. Reviewers talked about it being great for commuting and weekend rides.
They said that it was great for long-distance touring. It's a bit of a do-it-all bike.
But as we mentioned, that long-term reliability was something to observe.
Now with that 5-year warranty, that is way less of a concern. And that's valuable.
How do you think that extended warranty factors into the overall value proposition?
Yeah, that's the trade-off, right? Do you go with a more established option?
Or do you embrace something newer, like the Himalayan, with its appealing build quality?
It really comes down to your priorities and risk tolerance.
And clearly, the solid feel and your positive test ride experience were high on your list.
So for you, our listener who's already purchased it, the question is, where do your priorities lie?
What are you looking for in an adventure bike? You were drawn to its metal build.
How important is that feeling of a substantial, well-built machine like the one you experienced?
Those are some great questions to keep in mind as we continue our discussion.
Because ultimately, the decision of whether the Himalayan 450 is right is based on factors that resonated with you.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about the pros and cons.
Yeah, I think we've given listeners a pretty good overview.
And your experience really adds a valuable real-world perspective.
We compared it for the competition and tried to present a complete picture.
We've gone over the specs and that question of long-term reliability.
What's fascinating here is that the definition of a bike feeling right can be personal.
Now it's up to you to continue exploring and see if the Himalayan 450 fits your aspirations.
Think about your riding style and how the bike's features align with your needs.
Consider whether the Himalayan 450 aligns with your needs.
These are the questions we want you to keep in mind as you embark on your journey.
It all boils down to what you're looking for in a bike.
After all, the best motorcycle for you is the one that you connect with.
Well said. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thank you for joining us and sharing your experience with the Royal Enfield Himalayan 450.
We trust that your first-hand insights will be helpful to others.
We'll see you next time for another exciting exploration.
And we hope that you'll continue to join us and share your unique insights.
Well, that about wraps it up for today.
We hope our discussion has provided a deeper understanding of the Royal Enfield Himalayan 450.
So, folks, that was the crux of a lot of videos, a lot of write-ups which I was able to gather, and it got you some insights. So, honestly speaking, when it comes to Royal Enfield Himalayan, I think personally it's a wonderful machine. See, every bike comes with a challenge, right? I had a Tiger, it had challenge. I had a Bonneville, it had a challenge. A lot of people I've observed and seen having BMW, they have suspension issues. It's going right, it's going left, etc., etc. I had a GT, had a major challenge. So a lot of bikes I've already observed, they have a lot of challenges. So it's not that machines come without challenges. They come with challenges. They are, in the end of the day, machines and electronic gadgets and items. So they actually are supposed to have problems and challenges. But what happens is brands, to kill each other, they create a lot of noise in the market, and then users go overboard. They expect that if a machine is coming out in the market, it'll come absolutely 100% crisp and will never face any challenge and have any challenge at all. It doesn't work like this, guys. Let's understand, we are not in Japan right now, that to the perfection things are being made. And especially when it comes to Himalayan and a play company like Royal Enfield, we are known to make things which are over a period of time refined. But also understand the fact that RE has been there since long time, since ages, and it's not that it's people have given up on it. If in case it were a bad machine, then people would have given up on it. But now when I'm looking at all the reviews, and I'm actually personally looked at the motorcycle, I really loved it. And now very shortly, on 16th, I'm going to get delivery of my motorcycle. Then I'm going to start reviewing that motorcycle. It's a new 2025 version, where it's a scaled up version, completely new, based on a lot of feedback that have gone in from the customers and clients. So guys, these guys have really worked hard and brought to you a very beautiful machine, which really will set standards and also meet your expectations, be it in mountains or on roads, or for that matter potholes, given that Showa suspension does magic because it's world class right now. So our Royal Enfield is actually shook hands with a lot of big brands to make it big, like Brembo brakes for that matter. Like a lot of people are saying that the brakes kind of the brake pads just disappear after 2000 3000 kilometers. It's very subjective. It's subjective how are you riding it. It was same was the case with my Bonwell. They were kind of wearing off very quickly, but then it was purely about the way I was riding, how much brakes I was applying, I was using the front brake or not, I was using engine braking or not. All that matters actually. And if I'm riding in mountains and if I'm complaining about 2000 kilometers, then I'm stupid, because I'm riding in mountains and obviously the brakes are going to be used a lot more than if they are going to be used in the plains. So a lot of factors play a vital role. So you can't just be judgmental about anything just because the things are not working or somebody said it. There are a lot of accessories that I'm going to be installing that, and whenever I'm going to install that, I'm going to come up with a video. So thank you so much for watching. I think this has become a little longer. So if you have any more questions, do pose it in the comment, and I'll bring to you more context towards whatever motorcycle that you're looking at. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please subscribe, share, like and comment, and don't forget to hit the bell icon so that you get to know when I come up with new videos. वैसे लोग देखते हैं videos, subscribe नहीं करते, that's a shame. Please watch. When you're watching, please subscribe. God bless. All the best. Happy journey.